What is up, and welcome back to another episode of Blood and Beer, the show where we talk blood sport and we drink beer. I'm your host, Matt, and as always, we've got some MMA to talk. Big UFC news today, going over the PFL pay-per-view numbers on Battle of the Giants, new MMA rules rolling out this weekend for UFC Edmonton. We're going to get into all that in just a second. First, the beers we're sipping on, some Yingling Lagers, baby, America's oldest brewery. All right. So yeah, we're just going to get into it today. Big news coming out of UFC. The headline main event for UFC 310 has been canceled. Bella Muhammed versus Shavkat Rakhmonov. Muhammad is out with a bone injury on his toe, it looks like. Nasty. Might be a bone infection, they said. We'll see what happens with that. But they need a new main event. The card already has Pantoja versus what's his name? Asakura? Pantoja versus Asakura for the co-main event at 125 for the title. But earlier this year at UFC 301, that card didn't do too well when Pantoja headlined in Brazil, his home country, so they probably don't trust him to headline one of the end of the year cards like this. So, what we've been hearing since the cancellation of the Bilal fight, we hear Alex Poatan Pereira has been contacted for a fight against Magomed Ankalaev. Super pumped about that. He had a chance to take Fighter of the Year back from Ilia Topuria, but they say that's not an option. Poatan, he was hurt for that Khalil fight. He was hurt for the Yuri fight before that and hurt for the Jamal fight before that. I mean, the dude's been fighting hurt, so he can't take that fight. He needs just a little bit of time off. He's going to kill Ankalaev anyways. He's going to break his fucking leg. But that still leaves us. Where the fuck are we for 310? So we're hearing a lot of rumors. We heard Joaquin Buckley. He says he wants to fight Shavkat Rakhmonov. He's a knockout artist. He says people want to see that. Problem is, he's got a fight booked. He's going to be headlining UFC Miami versus Ian Gary. That's going to be a great fight. Undefeated Ian Gary versus Joaquin Buckley. Buckley's power puncher. Gary's strategical. Both good wrestlers. But Buckley's definitely got the wrestling advantage where Gary has the submission advantage. And they're just very different on the feet. It's going to be kind of like the Wonder Boy versus Buckley fight. But that still leaves us. Where the hell are we for UFC 310? Where are we? So we got Shavkat Rakhmonov. He's got to fight for the interim title or fight for something, right? I've heard a couple names floating around. JDM, we don't know if he'll be ready by then. He's definitely a opportunity. But the big rumor going around, they say Dana White's going to be announcing this in the next couple days. We don't know if it's true because it's just a rumor, but Kamaruddin Usman is going to be fighting Shavkat Rakhmonov for the interim UFC welterweight title. Usman's coming off 3 losses, but a close one with Hamza in the at 185, and then a close one with Leon at 170 when he was just absolutely hurt to shit, knocked out by Leon before that when he was beating the shit out of him. So it's a good-looking 3-loss skid, I guess, but 3-loss skid, he's fighting for the interim title. If this is true, this is going to be a great fight, though, because Usman looked great against Hamzat. I know it was a weight class up, but his wrestling's still there. He's got the gas tank, and he could be a problem for Rakhmonov. Rakhmonov's a fucking fireball. Dude finishes everybody. But we saw him gas a little bit in his past couple fights. He still gets the finish, but could he go 5 rounds with Kamaru Usman, or could he get him out before the 3rd round? Because I don't think he's ever been past the 3rd round, Shavkat. So that'll be a great fight if that's what's going to happen. We don't know. We got a lot of time before UFC 310. They'll probably wait till 309 the night of or the day before to announce that main event. But yeah, shambles right now for UFC 310. We can't let Pantoja headline. It can't be like 301. It can't be a shit card like that. And that card, it's kind of stacked, but it's not there enough to where he could headline and it still sells. So that's what we got going on with that 310 title picture. The fights, we don't know what's happening. We hope it's going to be remade at 170 interim title. Makes all the sense in the world. Bilal, he's going to come back and fight whoever it is. I don't know, that injury, that age, it might be a problem for Bilal. But other things we got going on with the UFC, they're going to be the first to roll out the new MMA rule set where the 12-6 elbows are legal and knees to a grounded opponent are legal if they only have one hand on the ground, or I think one knee also. As long as their butt or 2 hands are not on the ground, or both knees, then you can knee him in the head, and that's going to be fucking awesome. A lot more finishes. The 12-6, I don't think that's going to bring up a lot more finishes because that's not a super powerful move. It actually leaves you quite open, because if you're going 12-6, especially straight over top, it gives them the chance to buck you off. You're a little off balance. You're putting your weight out there. So we'll see what happens with that. I don't think the 12-6 is going to be a big deal. The only thing I could see happening with that is we might overturn the John Jones loss to Matt Hamill to a no contest, get him that one off his record, and get him back to undefeated. But awesome to see these new rules implemented. They needed to do something with these knees to a grounded opponent, because wrestlers, they can shoot and they just put a hand on the ground and you can't do anything. They're just going to stall. You can't stall anymore. You're going to get kneed in the fucking face. And then that brings us to one of our final topics here. We got the PFL Battle of the Giants. Their pay-per-view numbers are in, and they are horrible. Sold 10,000 US pay-per-views. That's about $500,000 that they made off their pay-per-views. Pathetic when you think of the big picture. Francis Ngannou made $8 million on this card. Renan Ferreira goes out for a minute and a half and made $2 million because he's fighting Francis Ngannou, and that's part of Francis's contract. Anybody he fights gets $2 million guaranteed. They only make $500,000 on US pay-per-view sales. They might have made another 100 or 200,000 overseas. On days internationally, it was $20 to buy the pay-per-view, but I mean, even then, you're not making up that $10 million for the main event. And that doesn't even include Cyborg's purse, AJ McKee, Paul Hughes, Larissa Pacheco. I mean, Johnny Eblin, fucking Fabian Edwards. I mean, they are in a hole here. This might be the end of the PFL. This is horrible financially. I know they got a lot of sponsors. I know they got this, that, and the other. But when you put on shit card after shit card after shit card, and the only card you have with names, the card that the investors are like, yep, here's our money back. This is what we've been waiting for. This is what we've been investing for. Only card that they have like that sells fucking 10,000 pay-per-view buys. The worst part about it is that Francis is under contract for another fight where his opponent is guaranteed $2 million, and I think he's guaranteed somewhere between $8 and $12 million for his next fight. I mean, it's not looking good for the PFL, and I'm going to get into why they fucked up, where they fucked up, because they were on fire in 2021, 2022. I thought they were going to be, they didn't have the names, but they were shooting towards the star with just, they looked amazing with their no-name guys just going out there, putting on fights, making the $1 million. It was gritty. It was a good show. Now you don't know what the hell's going on with the PFL. You got the Bellator Champion Series. You got the super fight cards, super fight fighters, and then you got the tournament also. There are 3 promotions in one trying to get you to buy in on all of them, and you just can't keep up. And I'm a diehard and I can't even keep up with this shit with PFL. I don't know when their finals are. I think it's in November or December. They haven't been advertising that as well. Just like they didn't advertise Battle of the Giants. They're a mess. We'll get into it just a moment. So where did PFL fuck up? Where'd they fuck up? Signing all these big names, bringing them over. Big names, not a problem. I think, and I've never built a promotion, of course, but in my mind, the best way to build a promotion isn't to try to go out there and take on the UFC right away, or to try to steal their stars with money and do that, because all people are going to look at is Dana White trashing the fighter on their way out the way he did with Francis, or they left on a losing skid and UFC wouldn't re-sign him. So you lose credibility in your fighters right there. What you need to do, PFL, and you lost this. You lost this. You can get back to it, but you're going to have to kind of work your way down to work your way up. Tear yourself down to build yourself back up. You need to build your own fucking stars and let their performances speak for themselves. You had Clay Collard. He's building himself up. I know he didn't pan out the way you wanted him, but he was a guy. You have all these guys. You had Rory McDonald, who, yeah, he was a UFC fighter, but he was your guy. He was doing good for you guys. Ray Cooper. After they win that title, after they capitalize on that's when you bring the big names in, throw them on a super fight card, and have your guy fight someone he's way better than, that's over the hill, but with a big name. And then when your guy goes out there as an underdog, because nobody knows who your guy is hardly, except for the big diehard fans, and he knocks out the former UFC fighter or the former UFC champ, then you have a guy that's so fucking over. Everyone's like, man, could this guy compete in the UFC? Could this guy be a top 10, top 5 UFC guy? The way Bellator had people with AJ McKee, Patricio Fury. I mean, they had it there. Johnny Eblen is still there in the top 5, I think, at 180 or 185. But I mean, they don't know what the fuck they're doing. It's like they have ADHD. I feel it. I have ADHD. I'm all over the place. But you gotta focus when you're doing this shit. Lose the supercard fights. You're not making any fucking money off of them. It's a dumb idea. Lose the Bellator Champion Series. Nobody's watching that either. You got nobody watching your pay-per-views, nobody watching Bellator. People are watching the playoffs, but only diehards anymore because you've buried that product by making these super fights with super fight championships on top of the PFL championships. So it's just muddy waters. Nobody knows what the fuck's going on. You're doing cash grab, cash grab, cash grab, and you're not grabbing any fucking cash. Bad fucking move. And then you want to go out there and say you're competing with the UFC, you're on their level, you're taking... Don Davis is a fucking idiot when it comes to promoting so far. I mean, I haven't seen him do anything right. This card was a disaster. They didn't promote it. They don't have their own people fighting on it. You think about this card, as far as big names, PFL people fighting on it, goodness, Larissa Pacheco, Renan Fierro. That's all you had. They both lost. Now, you can't control the outcomes of fights, but when your star is Renan Fierro and he's taking on a guy like Francis, who you just brought in from the UFC, Renan Fierro is not going to beat Francis. We know that, but build it up a little. I don't know. They just... You can't be feeding your fighters to the fucking wolves. You give Larissa Pacheco to the number 1 or number 2 best women's fighter of all time in Chris Cyborg. And then you give Renan Fierro to the most devastating knockout puncher in UFC history in Francis Ngannou. Besides Derek Lewis and Alex Pereira probably. But one of the most devastating knockout guys in the world. And he went out there in Dagestan. He wrestled the guy. Ground and pound smash. Dude beats him. But, I mean... what the fuck are you doing? You just build these guys up to bury them because now where's Renan Fierro's stock? He didn't compete in the tournament this year. He goes nowhere from here. He either jumps back in the tournament and he's fat and happy. He got his $2 million. He's going to fucking lose first round and he's going to lose both his regular season matches, or if he wins, there'll be boring decisions and he won't move on. It's just the UFC model. It shows you how to do it. You bring these guys in. You build these guys up. You build it, and then you're in control of this narrative. You don't pay them $2 million just because they're fighting this fucking stud. You pay them what's on their fucking contract because they need to work to get to that $2 million. If you haven't shown me you're worth $2 million, why am I paying you $2 million? What, because Francis Ngannou feels bad for his opponent, so we're paying you extra? This is a big PFL rant because I just can't believe... I was talking to my buddy before this. 10,000 fucking pay-per-view buys. Are you serious? That is pathetic. And it's all on the PFL. It's not because people are just dead set in their ways. They're in love with the UFC and they won't buy any other product because that's just not true. Jake Paul, he can sell. I know he's a YouTube personality and he's got his people, but he brings the people in. He advertises, he promotes, he gets people interested in this fight. PFL does not do that. They don't have commercials for this shit on ESPN. They don't even advertise it on ESPN. When you go to scores and shit, when PFL is having a card, you got to search for PFL. And then if you missed part of the card, well, good luck knowing what the fuck happened other than win, loss, because they don't, the way the UFC does it, every single fight, even the first fight on the prelims, even on the Dana White Contender Series, you click on that fight, you can see the stats. You can see how the fight went if you missed it. You can see how many punches were landed, takedowns, control time. PFL has none of that, even for their main events. They don't keep track of any of it. They do for the card, and that is it. They're a fucking mess. They're obsessed with the smart cage. They have bad announcers. They're obsessed with their super fights, their super fighters. They're not even talking about the guys fighting for the championships. Dakota Dicheva is their only star that they have fighting for a championship, really. I mean, it's pathetic what they got going on over there. You got Brendan Loughnane. He's going out there. He's a former champ, and nobody would even know that Brendan Loughnane's going for his second title in PFL. And it's going to be his third time fighting for a title in PFL. But nobody would fucking know that because PFL doesn't advertise for shit. They don't build their fighters up. They're just like, well, we got our sponsorship money, so we're just going to we're going to ship it in for the rest of the year. Let it pan out itself. We're going to run hot mics the whole fucking commercial break. We're not even going to take them off not even going to kill their mics, not going to tell them to get up, go pee. Just let them talk shit about the fighters, Tyron Woodley, Randy Couture. You guys did that this summer in the PFL regular season. Pack a lip pillow real quick. I mean, it's just a fucking mess. The whole promotion is a mess. I feel like my rant is a mess because where do you even start with these guys? If their whole goal is to not be a fight business and just to be ad revenue service where they just bring in money through their ads, that's great, but that's not for the fans. And if it was for the fans, they would be fucking putting on commercials. They'd be letting you know. They'd be all over social media. It's not hard to get over social media when you're as big as the PFL. I know they're not the UFC, but goddamn, they can get over. You got people with fucking 80,000 followers getting 100,000 likes, 100 million likes. I mean, you can fucking do it. You just got to put in the work instead of spending all your fucking money on these fighters that aren't giving you anything, because all that does when Francis Ngannou goes out there and absolutely starches your heavyweight champion in the first round by wrestling him. The only guy he's wrestled is Cyril Gane up to this point. By wrestling him, all that does is tell the world that the UFC is that much fucking better than you. And we knew that, but keep up some kayfabe. Don't feed your guys to the fucking wolves. What you need to do is sign a guy like Andrei Arlovsky and put him against Renan Fierro. Let Fierro build his name off somebody that, yeah, they were a former UFC champ. They're way over the hill. Easy win if he got some power. He's a good fighter. He still wins some fights every now and then. He has close split losses. But to just feed him to a guy like Francis fucking Ngannou, one of the top 3 heavyweights in the world, you're out of your fucking mind, Don Davis. Give me your job. Let's sit down. Let me do your fucking job for you. Because I just don't know what the fuck's going on with the PFL. Are you guys so wrapped up in your ads you just can't afford to advertise yourself? I don't know what you're doing. I really don't. It's truly pathetic where the PFL has gone, and it's a disservice to the people that are signed to them for these multi-year contracts fighting in the PFL seasons, because these guys signed to them knowing, yeah, that $1 million is on the line. And are they going to make that a fucking pay-per-view, the PFL Championship? Or are you going to make us pay $50 again to watch the PFL Championship, and then maybe 5,000 fucking buys because nobody even knows about it anymore because you guys have buried the product so much? What the fuck are you going to do? You got to hand out $8 million on that card too, or $7 million. I mean, what the fuck are you doing? It's pathetic. It's absolutely pathetic. I'm going to stop ranting and raving about the PFL because it does frustrate me so much when a company with so much promise that they had a couple years ago turns into what they've turned into. Just a money grab, cash grab. We'll do whatever we can for money. You didn't make shit off this Francis card. You had to have lost the fucking bank. This might be the end of the PFL. I said it earlier, but this might be the end of the PFL. I don't know what their finances are looking like. I know they have Saudi money, but Saudi's not going to want to put money into stuff that nobody gives a shit about. They put money into boxing because they want people to give a shit about boxing. Put money into the UFC because they know people give a shit about the UFC and it's fucking entertaining. They put money into the PFL hoping they could create a competition, I think, and it just turned out to not be that, and it's just pathetic. You're ruining these guys' career by having them fight on these big promotions, and they have a chance at the $1 million. That's great for them, but you might as well be fighting on fucking LFA with the exposure you get. They're on ESPN, but nobody knows when the fuck they're on because PFL can't advertise for shit. They don't have a consistent schedule. During the regular season, they're fighting Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, random days throughout the week. I'm sorry. I'm done with this fucking rant. It's just, there's so much to bitch about for the PFL. Get it together. Get it together. As a fan, I want you to get it together. I want you to kill all these other fucking side quests you're doing. Focus solely on your tournament. Expand it. Make it a fucking, instead of making it 4 fights, make it 6. Make it 5 fights. You know, expand the tournament. Make it super interesting. You can bring these big names in, put them in the tournament, and don't guarantee them a shit ton. Maybe guarantee them like, 80 or 100K and say, but, get to the next round, you get a little more, and then you still get the $1 million if you win it. But don't sign these guys to these massive contracts. I think Anthony Pettis got like $750,000 for losing over and over again in the PFL. I mean, over and over again he was losing. He got paid $750, I think, for each fight. It's ridiculous. See what I mean? I keep saying I'm done, but I just keep thinking of things that bring me back to what is going through your mind as a company to do what the PFL has done to the PFL. They should. Why did you buy Bellator if you weren't going to incorporate their roster? If you're going to let half their roster go, if you're going to let stars, you're bringing stars in, but you have a star like Gegard Mousasi, and you're like, kick dirt, bud. Like, eat shit. Fuck you. We don't need you. Gegard's suing him now for $15 million, and he probably won't get that whole amount, but he'll probably get a good bit because he's been put on the shelf. His contract was terminated. He's been put through the ringer. Now I'm done with the PFL. That's all. Got to get on to something else to close out the show. So UFC, last thing we have for them. They're working on an interim title fight, reportedly. Diego Lopez versus Alexander Volkanovski for UFC 312, because I think they really want to get Topuria in Spain. They're working on that either the second or third quarter of 2025, I'm imagining, because they don't have anything on the docket right now. But with that knockout, you got to capitalize. Just like taking Connor to Ireland, Dublin, you got to capitalize on Topuria. He's not the same guy yet, but he could be. I don't see it. I don't see the star power. I think he's an amazing fighter. He's a beast. I just don't think he's got the gift of gab. He doesn't draw the fans in. I think he's got just the same way Poatan does. He's got the diehards like, wow, this guy's a fucking beast. But he is also a massive star in Spain. So you get him over there, you could sell out a 70,000 seat arena probably, or stadium. We'll have to see. But yeah, interim title fight for Volkanovski versus Lopez. That's reportedly what's being worked on. We don't know, though. They say that Volkanovski, when contacted, he's not afraid. He's not turning down a Lopez fight, but he said any fight that he's going to be in, it has to be for gold. He's not going to fight for anything but gold. So whether that's the interim title or the featherweight title, that's what he's fighting for. All right. And that's all I got for you today. UFC 308's coming, or not 308, that was last weekend. UFC Edmonton is tomorrow night. Moreno versus Albazi. Rose Namajunas taking on Aaron Blanchfield. It's going to be a good card. Remember, them new rules start tomorrow. We're going to see what happens. Maybe Namajunas lands a nasty knee on a Blanchfield takedown. We'll have to see on that. And then next weekend, we got Neil Magny taking on Carlos Praetos in a main event on UFC Fight Night. UFC Apex 100, the 100th UFC Apex. That's going to be going down next weekend. We'll have a pick'em for you next week after our recap of this UFC card. And then, finally, we're going to follow that up with UFC 309. We got a bunch of big cards for you. We're going to do, it's going to be an around the horn type show. I'm hoping I can get all the people in on it this time, at least 2 of them. And we're going to do around the horn type show, special UFC 309 spectacular. I'll throw my pick'ems out, the previews, the whole 9 yards. So, thanks for tuning in. This is the 98th episode of Blood and Beer. Remember, at 100 subscribers, we're doing a giveaway. We're at 99 right now, so we're so close. But I appreciate you tuning in. This has been Matt with Blood and Beer.